The Henderson family reunion occurred every 5 years, a tradition my grandmother had begun in the 1960s. 50 or 60 relatives would swarm my parents' home in Connecticut, filling every corner with chatter, laughter, and the kind of forced cheer that comes from people connected by blood but not by closeness. I had almost skipped this one. I considered citing a work obligation, a looming research deadline, anything to avoid the inevitable judgment. But my mother called 3 times, her voice equal parts careful and pleading. I gave in because that's what happens when you're labeled a family underachiever. You show up and endure. My brother Cameron held court on the back deck, a beer in one hand and his phone in the other, showing pictures of his corner office to a circle of impressed cousins. At 35, he was a vice president at a major investment bank, earning $400,000 a year plus bonuses. His wife, Jennifer, flaunted designer outfits and gushed about their ski trips to Aspen. Their children went to private schools. Meanwhile, I was 32, and in the eyes of my relatives, I had squandered every advantage ever offered to me. PhD from MIT, Uncle Robert said, shaking his head as he eyed me across the dessert table. And what did you do with it? Lock yourself in a lab for 10 years. Research takes time, I replied calmly, selecting a slice of apple pie. Research, he repeated, as though it were a curse. Your brothers are making millions. They bought homes in Greenwich. You're still living in that tiny Cambridge apartment, earning what? $60,000 a year. 72,000, I corrected, counting postdoc stipends. 72,000, he scoffed. With your degree, it's practically a crime. Aunt Patricia leaned closer, adopting that sympathetic tone reserved for tragedies. Have you considered leaving academia? Industry work. Cameron could probably connect you. Real jobs, real money. I enjoy my work, I said. But is it sustainable? She pressed. You're 32. You should plan for a real career, a family. I didn't mention that my modest 2-bedroom apartment was fully paid for 3 years ago thanks to a patent licensing deal, that my research had generated $12 million in licensing revenue for MIT over the past 5 years, or that I had declined 6 offers from industry paying over $300,000 because corporate science didn't appeal to me. There was no point. Their opinion of me had been set a decade ago, and any contrary evidence only confused them. The problem, Cameron declared loudly enough for everyone on the patio to hear, is that Daniel never learned to think practically. Brilliant, yes, but brilliance doesn't pay the bills. You need business acumen, street smarts, the ability to monetize talent. A murmur of agreement passed through the crowd. I tried getting him an interview at my firm years ago, Cameron continued. Entry level, nothing fancy. He turned it down, said he wanted to focus on research. They laughed. Focus on research, Cameron mocked. Like that's a career. Dad nodded from his lawn chair, a mix of disappointment and resignation etched across his face. Wasted potential, he muttered. Daniel had every opportunity, the best schools, the brightest mind. And what did he do? Buried himself in work no one understands or needs. Physics research isn't exactly theoretical anymore, I said. The applications are quite tangible. Applications, Dad snorted. You've been at the same project for what, 8 years? 10, if you include your doctorate. Different fields have different timelines, I countered. Excuses, Uncle Robert said gently. That's the difference between you and Cameron. Cameron X. You make excuses. I took a bite of pie. Mom had baked it herself, real cinnamon and a hint of nutmeg. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. Checking it during a family gathering was a surefire way to spark commentary for the next 5 years. Cameron smirked. Let me guess. One of your science friends wants to discuss particle physics over lukewarm coffee. In fact, I said, we usually debate quantum field theory over excellent coffee at a cafe that knows how to make proper espresso. Again, no point in correcting them. My phone rang. The ringtone I used for important calls. Not friends, not family, calls worth answering. Sorry, I said, stepping away from the patio. I need to take this. Of course, Cameron said, rolling his eyes. Even a family reunion can't stop work, huh? I moved into the quiet of my parents' garden. The number was Swedish, Stockholm, specifically. My pulse quickened. Dr. Henderson. I said, answering. This is Dr. Goran Hansson, Secretary General of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. The voice said, formal and precise. I am calling to inform you that you have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. I sank onto the garden bench, the same one where I used to hide behind books during family gatherings as a kid. My phone buzzed. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I asked. The Nobel Prize in Physics has been awarded to you for your groundbreaking work on quantum coherence and its applications in computing systems, Dr. Hansen said. The formal announcement will be made in approximately 7 minutes. I wanted to contact you personally before the news goes public. Thank you, I muttered, my brain seemingly incapable of retrieving any other words from the English language. We talked for another minute, logistics, timing, confidentiality, before I finally hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, unable to move. 10 years. 10 years of 18-hour days in a lab that perpetually smelled of ozone and burnt coffee. 10 years of failed experiments, flashes of breakthrough, and the relentless, grinding effort of pushing the boundaries of human knowledge, inch by inch. 10 years of family gatherings where I was always the cautionary tale, the bright one who had made odd life choices. And now the Nobel Prize. At 32, I would be among the youngest recipients in history. What began as my doctoral thesis on quantum coherence had grown into the foundation of practical quantum computing. The Henderson Protocol was being implemented in research labs across 14 countries. IBM and Google had both licensed it, and the applications ranged from cryptography to drug discovery to climate modeling. Yet none of this had mattered to my family. They measured success in corner offices and six-figure salaries, not transformative science. My phone buzzed again. A message from Dr. Sarah Chin, my research partner. Daniel, you saw the news, right? Tell me you know. Another from Professor Williams, my doctoral advisor, Nobel Prize. Call me immediately. Then the alerts came in waves, texts, emails, calls. The news was public. I walked slowly back to the patio, phone in hand, buzzing like an angry wasp. Cameron, mid-story about a deal, gestured with his beer. If you want real returns, you need to take real risks, I said automatically, though my voice felt unreal. Daniel, your phone's been going off. Are you okay? Mom asked. Everything's fine, I lied. Aunt Patricia frowned. You look pale. Feeling all right. I'm fine. Just got some news, I said. Bad news? Uncle Robert asked, his concern abrupt. Funding cut. No, not that. Then what? Dad's tone suggested my announcement probably wasn't important enough to interrupt the reunion. I opened my mouth, then closed it. How do you tell people who spent a decade pitying you that you just won the highest honor in your field? I didn't have to. Cousin Maya, 23, glued to her phone, screamed loud enough to echo across the county. Oh my God! Oh my God, Daniel! All eyes turned to her. The Nobel Prize, she gasped, shaking her phone. CNN, BBC, the New York Times, they're all reporting it. Daniel Henderson won the Nobel Prize in Physics. A stunned silence settled over the patio, heavy enough to feel physical. That's impossible, Cameron said flatly. Maya held up her phone. A breaking news alert blinked on the screen. Youngest Nobel Prize winner in decades, Dr. Daniel Henderson awarded Physics Prize for quantum computing breakthrough. Dad's voice wavered. There must be another Daniel Henderson. No, Maya whispered, showing the photo. It's him. Definitely him. There I was, staring back at my family from my MIT faculty photo. The headline read, Revolutionary work in quantum mechanics earns 32-year-old researcher science's highest honor. Uncle Robert's beer slipped from his hand, clattering against the stones. Mom's voice trembled. Daniel, is this real? Yes, I said quietly. The announcement went public 3 minutes ago. Cameron was scrolling frantically. Your work is the foundation of quantum computing. IBM and Google have licensed your protocols. The Henderson Protocol, I confirmed. It's licensed to 17 organizations so far. The revenue mostly goes back into research. MIT takes a cut, I keep some, and the rest funds lab operations and graduate stipends. How much? Aunt Patricia asked faintly. The total licensing deals are valued around $47 million over 5 years. My share is roughly $12 million, though after taxes and reinvestment, closer to $6 million. Dad repeated the number in disbelief. $12 million plus your salary, which is actually $127,000, not $72,000. Yes, I said. I'd been promoted to associate professor last year. The Nobel Prize also comes with a $1.2 million cash award. After Swedish taxes, it's about $900,000, but still, it's recognition beyond measure. Recognition. Uncle Robert scoffed. You call the Nobel Prize recognition? It's the highest honor in physics, I said evenly. But the real value isn't the money, it's the validation. Every failed experiment, every late night, every inch of progress, it all led here. It meant that the scientific world recognized the Henderson Protocol as a game-changing contribution. That acknowledgement carried far more weight than any monetary reward. Cameron kept scrolling through his phone, his expression shifting in ways I had never witnessed before. The article in Nature read, "You are now considered one of the most influential physicists of your generation." Nature had always been supportive, having published 3 of my major studies. 3 in Nature, a rare achievement. Patricia's voice wavered. That's almost unbelievable. It's uncommon, yes, I said. But the research was sound. Peer review confirmed its importance. That's how science works. Maya was reading from her phone now, her tone uneven. It says here your work could transform everything from drug discovery to climate modeling, calling the Henderson Protocol the most significant advancement in quantum mechanics in the last 3 decades. That's flattering, I admitted. There are other researchers whose work is just as vital. Dr. Chin, my collaborator, deserves equal credit. She has been essential in applying the protocol practically. Dr. Sarah Chin. Cameron looked up sharply. The physicist who won the MacArthur Fellowship last year. Yes, I confirmed. We've collaborated for 6 years. She's brilliant. She arguably should have won a Nobel too. But the committees often overlook collaborative efforts. You're working with a MacArthur Fellow, Aunt Patricia said, almost to herself. And you won the Nobel at 32. Technically, I'm receiving the Nobel Prize, I clarified. The award recognizes 10 years of continuous research, not just one isolated accomplishment. Mom's tears fell freely. Daniel, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you share the significance of your work? I held her gaze for a long moment. I tried. Mom, remember when I published my first paper in Nature? I called to tell you, and you asked if it came with extra pay. When MIT offered me an associate professorship, you asked about health insurance. When IBM licensed my protocol, you asked if I'd finally get a real job. The silence was heavy. You thought I was wasting my life, I continued softly. You acknowledged my intelligence but saw me as impractical, smart but naive. You compared me to Cameron and found me lacking because my accomplishments didn't look like his. That's not fair, Dad said, but his voice sounded uncertain. Exactly. At last year's reunion, you introduced me as the eternal student. At Christmas, Cameron gave a toast about his success, while mine went unnoticed. Uncle Robert told me to save my breakthroughs for those who understood them. Cameron's hands trembled as he placed his phone down carefully. I called you a failure, I said, steady but firm. You did. Several times at the reunion, at Christmas, at my sister's birthday last summer when I missed it because I had a presentation at CERN. CERN. Patricia gasped. Yes, twice. The European physics community is very interested in quantum coherence, and a team at CERN is using the Henderson Protocol to analyze particle accelerator data. Uncle Robert sank into a lawn chair. I told you to get a real job. I said you were squandering your MIT education. I even called your research a hobby. Yes, I said. Memorable indeed. Aunt Patricia's phone buzzed again. It's Margaret, she said. She wants to know if you're the Daniel Henderson who won the Nobel. Her husband wants to meet you. Yes, it's me. I've met her husband already at my promotion celebration last year. Mom's voice cracked. Your promotion, and we didn't know. You were invited. You just couldn't attend because of Cameron's work event. I understand. Cameron flinched. That was just a client dinner. I know, I said gently, but it mattered to me, and the family wasn't there. That's been the pattern. Dad's phone rang. Aunt Patricia's rang again. Other notifications piled in. News was spreading fast. This is unreal, Maya murmured, still scrolling. There are already 50 articles. Bloomberg, The Washington Post, Time, they all want interviews. I have a press team to handle that, I said. MIT provides media support for high-profile faculty, especially Nobel laureates. Includes training, coordination with the Nobel Foundation, and protocol management. Sweden, Mom whispered. Yes, I said. The ceremony is in Stockholm this December. There's a banquet with the royal family, award presentations, speeches. It's formal. Can we go? Her hope burst out before she could stop herself. You can, I said. Nobel laureates are allowed several guests, family, colleagues, mentors. I'll bring Dr. Chin, Professor Williams, and others who contributed significantly. 8 spots in total. 8, she repeated, eyes shining. I haven't finalized the list yet, I continued. I need to include those who endured the late nights, the failed experiments, the moments of discovery, the ones who believed in the research when it was just theoretical. We should have believed in you, Dad said, voice rough. You should have respected me, I corrected gently. Support is nice, but respect is essential. You didn't respect my choices because you couldn't see their value. You measured success by corner offices and salaries, and when mine looked different, you dismissed it. Cameron's face went pale as he read another article. They're comparing your work to Einstein's early quantum papers. That's exaggerated, I said. Einstein worked alone without modern tools or networks. My work builds on hundreds of physicists who came before me. The comparison is flattering but inaccurate. The physics community uses dramatic language to attract attention, funding, and further research, I added. Uncle Robert stared at me as though he had never truly seen me before. 10 years. That's how long I'd poured myself into this. 10 years chasing questions I found endlessly fascinating. The Nobel Prize? That's just icing on the cake, a wonderful acknowledgement but still secondary. The true reward was the work itself, the precise moment an experiment confirms your hypothesis, the instant when you glimpse a truth about the universe that no one else has. That's what I've been chasing all along, and that's what still drives me. As for money, Aunt Patricia asked about the $12 million from licensing. It's useful, she said, for funding research, buying equipment, supporting grad students. I live comfortably, own my apartment, have savings. I don't need a mansion in Greenwich or ski trips to Aspen. What I need are quantum computers, laser arrays, brilliant colleagues who challenge my thinking, and that's what makes me happy. Mom looked at me like this was news. That's what makes you happy? Yes. It always has. I tried to explain why I loved physics, why research felt like the right path for me, but you kept comparing me to Cameron. You kept asking when I get serious about my career, treating my passion like a phase I'd eventually outgrow. Cameron finally put his phone down, looking at me directly for the first time since the announcement. I've been in, he began, then paused. Yes, I mocked your work, your choice is your life, publicly, consistently. I'm sorry, Daniel. Truly, deeply sorry. I studied him. I believe you. I accept your apology. But you need to understand, the Nobel Prize doesn't suddenly make my work more valuable than it was yesterday. It doesn't justify my choices. It simply means the world is finally noticing what I already knew, that the work matters. He nodded. I should have been kinder, more supportive. I should have been your brother, not your critic. Yes, you should have, I said. My phone buzzed again. I held up a hand. Sorry, I need to take this. It's the university. I walked into the garden, answering as I went. Dr. Henderson, Daniel? President Morrison's voice was buoyant over the speaker. Congratulations. This is extraordinary. The board is thrilled. The physics department is celebrating. Donors are already calling to fund your research. That's wonderful, sir. Thank you. We need to coordinate a press conference tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Media training this afternoon, if you're available. The Nobel Foundation will provide protocols, but we'll need to manage immediate responses. Can you come to campus tonight? I'll be there by 7, I said, glancing at my family, who were frozen in a mixture of shock and recalibration. Daniel, this is historic. You've brought incredible honor to MIT. We couldn't be prouder. Thank you. I'll see you tonight. Returning to the patio, the energy had shifted. Shock had become calculation, people trying to figure out how to approach the family member who'd just become notable. I need to head back to Cambridge, I said. Of course, Mom said quickly. Before you go, I'm so proud of you. We all are. I looked at her, at all of them. Are you proud of me or proud of the Nobel Prize? That's the same thing, Uncle Robert said. I shook my head. Yesterday, I was wasted potential. Today, I'm a Nobel laureate, but I'm the same person doing the same work. Only the world sees it differently. You shouldn't need an award to see me for what I do. Aunt Patricia admitted quietly, we see you differently now. That's the problem, I said softly. You should have seen me the same way all along, as someone doing meaningful work I love. The Nobel Prize doesn't validate me. It only makes visible what was always true. Cameron stepped forward. For what it's worth, I want to make it right. I want to be a supportive brother. I'd like that too, I said, but it will take time. 10 years of dismissal can't vanish in one conversation. I understand. Can we start with dinner next week? Just the two of us, no audience, no performances, just talking. I consider it. Yeah, I'd like that. Mom asked about the ceremony. In Stockholm, I'll think about the guest list, I said. I'll let you know. That's fair, Dad said, his voice heavy with regret. I walked to my modest Honda, which Cameron had once criticized, and loaded my bag. My phone buzzed constantly with congratulations, interview requests, messages from colleagues, and students worldwide. The 2-hour drive back to Cambridge passed in hands-free calls with Dr. Chin, Professor Williams, and my department chair. Everyone was excited, proud, eager to celebrate. Back in my small apartment, 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a study crowded with books and whiteboards, I sank onto the couch for a moment. The Nobel Prize, 10 years of work, publicly validated. Texts buzzed in. Cameron, proud of you, little brother. Sorry it took me so long. Mom, we love you. Always have. We just didn't understand. Maya, you're literally the coolest person I know. Can I interview you for my journalism class? I smiled, set the phone down, and turned to my whiteboard, covered in equations. The next problem, the next question, the next mystery of quantum mechanics awaited. Because that's who I am. The Nobel Prize was historic, wonderful, life-changing in some ways, but tomorrow morning, I'd wake at 6, make coffee, review lab data, video call Dr. Chin, spend 10 hours chasing the next breakthrough. Not the family disappointment who finally proved himself. Not the vindicated underdog. Just a physicist with problems worth solving, a life built around discovery. The Nobel Prize changed nothing about that. It only made the work visible. I picked up a marker, wrote new equations, and carried on. Because the work never stops.